Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Men Hurt Too, brought to you by hashtag Coffee with T, and I'm T. Men Hurt Too is a safe place for men to share their truth, whether it be through their experiences, education, or their opinions. A place to give the world a bird's eye view of what it looks like to be a Black man from a Black man's lens, and to understand that men are not only males, but human beings first. The reason I felt this platform was necessary is because I have three sons and they all have different personalities and temperaments. And what I learned through my journey of motherhood is what I want everyone to get from this experience is that men are human beings first and they have feelings too. So welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today I am very excited about my guest because he is an open book. And for me, a man who's an open book is a man who's healed and is on a journey of healing because we are forever healing because something's always going to happen in life because life never stops. So today I have with me Jason Moss. He's an author, he's a chef, creator of That Damn Brand and That Damn Cookbook. So Jason, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. So we're going to jump right into this because the time is going to go really fast. And that's one thing that I hate. But you're quite frank. You're a quite frank person, or should I say quite Jason? Anywho. So every man that I bring on, I always want to know what your blueprint was. So I always ask this question first. What was your relationship with your mom and your dad?
Well, that's a loaded question. So first of all, the man who raised me was not my biological father. He married my mother when I was 4. He adopted me. I have his last name. As fathers go, he was a great provider. He was a great role model. He checked all the boxes for a dad. And my mother, it's taken me most of my life, only until recently have I really come to grips with my thoughts on my mother. And at the end of the day, and I'm not going to get into her personal business, but she had a very traumatic youth. And she did the best that she could, coming from what she came from, and she gave the love and the affection that she could give with where she was at with her own self. So I mean, all in all, you can't, because you know what, in 10, 15, 20 years, you ask my kids that same question and how would they answer that? You know what I mean? So like we parent, and I know from my own experience, I have 5 kids. My oldest daughter is 20, my oldest is 27, she's my daughter, and my youngest is 8. And, I wish that I could be the parent that I'm trying to be now to my 11 and 8-year-old that I was to my, my 27 and my 25-year-old. I had my first kid when I was 21. I was still, I didn't even know me. So, it's really not fair to sit back in a place of judgment now and be a Sunday morning quarterback to my parents.
Right. No, I just like to know.
No. And I'm just speaking for myself. Like I don't think it's fair for me to critique them.
Right.
Listen, I always say this about my dad. He married my mother, it was like 76, 77, and a Black man marrying a Black woman with another man's child and adopting him in the 70s, nobody did that.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was thinking too. You said adopted. See, we get stepdads who come into the marry up, but they don't take that responsibility of adopting the last name.
Right. So just on that merit alone, I really got to keep my mouth shut and just like don't have a place of judgment, because he did what most men wouldn't have done. So
I love it. So because I want women to understand, and just the world in general to understand, the other man to feel free to say, I've had an experience in my life that shaped me to some degree, So either I've decided to come out of that experience of my parents and
Right.
be understanding, because my mom, her mother died when she was 15. Her dad was a womanizer and he liked young women. So my mother's whole experience of her life, I said, I don't know if I would have survived that. So I never have judgment, but I always want people to understand where I came from. So I always want people to understand that Black men have had some trauma and some things that went on. And sometimes, you know, you didn't have your biological dad in your life. And all of these things are a factor in our life that shape and mold us. And as we become of a certain age, of course, we're accountable, and it's not about that. But I just want women and too really to know that they have come from someplace too, because I've caused my children some trauma. So my boys are
right, and that's, you know, and we'll probably touch on this later on in the conversation, but the accountability, and when I was talking about my relationship with my mother, you know, it's about accountability, and I'm of the belief that we are 100% accountable for everything that happens in our life. And people are like, well, what do you mean? Wait, what if I was, you know, sexually assaulted, or what if I was this, or what if I was that? No, you are not accountable for that. I'm not saying that, but you are accountable for how you heal, and you are accountable for how you move forward. And, you know, I think a lot of us, men and women, we are in this continual spiral of victimization, of self-victimization, you know. And I think I look at, you know, look at people like Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 20 years.
Right.
But mentally he wasn't in prison. You know, we talk about wanting freedom and things like that in this country. Too often we ask for permission for things that we already have. We don't, you know what I mean? We don't need permission for that. We already have it. And we're waiting for somebody to give us something back that we have. And that's, you know, once you start taking accountability for things, you take that power away from other people and put it back in yourself.
I'm taking notes because I got to take notes from my men, because I'm here to learn and not to judge. This is why I wanted to do this platform, to learn from a Black man what it is like to be a Black man, because we try to analyze and dissect that as women in groups together, and you can't figure something out that you know nothing about. So I just go to the source. So our topic this week is overcoming your demons. So let's talk about addiction. And I want to just talk about the difference between, because you had a drug addiction.
I do. I still do. You never, in my opinion, you are never. Addiction is like like a lot of things, is a multi-layered thing, and you know, the actual physical consumption of whatever it is, drugs, alcohol, you know, I mean, I always say that you can be addicted to walking down the left side of the street if you want to.
Right.
That is just a physical manifestation of other things. So in my opinion, one never stops being an addict. I always say that I am a recovering addict. I've been recovering for the last 15 years, because an addict is who I am. You know,
right.
Just like if you're a diabetic, that is who you are.
Right.
I'm not making excuses for it. I'm not, you know, saying, oh, this is what I am and there can't be anything else. No, I'm just acknowledging a part of my personality, a part of who I am. I'm acknowledging that, I'm dealing with it, and I'm moving forward.
Wow. So you talk about in the book, your book is so good. We're going to talk about that later, because they got to get that damn cookbook, because that book set me free. As I was reading it, it's a cookbook, but it's also a healing journey, because to go on your healing journey with you in your book helped me heal in some areas in my life, because you talked about being on drugs and alcohol since the age of 15. I was too. I felt like I was looking in the mirror, like as the female version of you. And I'm just like, wow, all of that self-medicating I was doing, when I finally came to the light and found myself, it was okay. So you talk about addiction, and then you talked about you went to your new habit was OCR, obstacle course racing.
Yes.
So tell me about habits and addiction, because I need clarity on the difference between.
And I think it's a fine line. And you know, it's funny. You know, I've been a runner most of my life. I enjoy running, but for so long I used that as an escape. You know, when I first started on my journey of sobriety, I definitely used fitness and working out as my new drug. And you know, it's not something. I did it because I enjoyed it, but it was also, I did it because it was an impulsive thing. You know, I was feeding that, because here's the thing. Addiction, it's all about the mind. You know what I mean? It's all about feeding chemicals to the brain. And, you know, sometimes we do it through drugs and alcohol and other things, and sometimes we do it another way. But at the end of the day, it's getting dopamine and endorphins to the brain. Okay, they've done studies with monkeys and things like that. It's actually real, and I'm gonna take my time with this, but it's actually really interesting because they found that the addiction in the brain isn't so much the actual drug, whatever that is,
Right.
but it's the chemical that gets released just by thinking about having it. Because they did studies with these monkeys, and they gave these monkeys this sweet drink, and they would test their brain, and they thought that, you know, the monkey's brain was triggering because of the sweet drink. They found out inadvertently, unbeknownst to them, they found out that the monkey, they were triggering this chemical when the light went on in the hallway when they were coming down. So just the fact that they knew they were getting it triggered that. Yes. So they were getting that trigger even before they got, so it's not the actual, so much the actual chemical or whatever, it's how our brain reacts to it. So, you know, working out and fitness was giving me that same chemical release that I was getting from that's why. So I read a really interesting book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and it talks about re-engineering your thought process, because it's all about chemical impulses. Everything is about chemicals. And they were even saying that negativity becomes a genetic trait. Being negative becomes a genetic trait, because if you are in a negative environment and used to hearing negativity, you know, for a long period of time, your brain gets used to that chemical impulse, and that eventually becomes part of your DNA, and you hand that down. That's why, like, when we try to break a habit, when we try to do something different, we have a visceral reaction to it.
Right.
Our body is like repulses against it. That's because it's an addiction. We are breaking an addiction. We're stopping that chemical flowing to the brain and starting another chemical flow to the brain. So our body's like, wait a minute, where's my drug that you have been giving me for so long?
Wow.
So that's getting back to your original question. That's what I only found this out recently because I've had a hard time staying with a fitness routine over the last 2 years, I would say. And it's because I'm starting to heal. I'm starting to, in my soul, and we had talked about that before, my soul sobriety.
Yes.
Because that hole I was trying to fill, I'm learning how to fill it now without anything else.
Ooh, that's good.
So now I have to really refocus my mind, because for so long fitness was that escape. Running, I was almost, when I was running, I was almost running away. Now I'm not running away anymore.
Wow. So wait, I gotta talk about this in the book really quickly, because I got my book in front of me. But this hit me when and I have to thank Kirsten Tonic for introducing us and having me be a part of your life, because, you know, I don't think anything is happenstance, because you may not know it, but you've changed my life by just knowing you, and not just because the food was so good, but the stuff that you share in the book changed my life. So in the book it says, they say that once you start to get sober, you revert back to the emotional state you were in before your addiction began. That really,
because when you yes, because when you're drinking drugs or whatever, again, you know, the back to the chemical, the chemical impulses in your brain. Your brain is supposed to mature, and you know, yeah, I know that guy. And it's even worse for men, because we don't mentally mature. Our brain doesn't mentally mature until we're like 25 or 30 years old.
Right.
In a healthy situation. Then you put drugs and alcohol in that, so you stunt that growth, because the stuff that you were supposed to be doing, the chemicals and the growth that you're supposed to be getting, nurturing your brain, had stopped because of all the other chemicals were flowing in there. So it's just yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about saving yourself, because we're always looking for a rescue from other people. And you talk about sobering your soul. And I just want you to talk a little bit about saving your own self and not waiting on other people. And how did that look for you when you just started being accountable for your mess?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you talk about your mess in the book, for your mess, and when you started being accountable for healing yourself.
I think the accountability is the key, and that's once you start becoming accountable, then you can start healing. And that's an ongoing process, and healing has been a multi-layered process, and it's still an ongoing process. But accountability, you have to realize that no matter what the situation is, it's your fault.
Right.
It's your fault. You had something to do with that situation happening. And again, let's go to the extreme. And heaven forbid, when sexual assault. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that that's your fault.
Right.
Not that. I'm not. Let's. I don't want the emails. Yeah. But what is your responsibility? Like I said, is how do you heal? How do you move forward from that? You know what I mean? How do you deal with that? How do you process that? That is your responsibility. And when I guess fault maybe not be the right word, but responsibility. Let's use that word.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take off the table a real victim, because let's just put this off, take the table. For those who are tuned in, you tuned into Men Hurt Too, and I'm here with my guest author, chef, brand creator of That Damn Brand, Jason Moss, and we're talking about what it is to rescue yourself right now. So we're going to take off the table for anybody who's listening. When Jason says you're responsible for your life, we're not talking about a real victim. And we're not talking about people who play victim. A victim is a person who's taken by surprise, who's raped. A person when somebody jumps out the bushes and shoots you. So we're taking children who were molested and women who were raped. We're taking that thing off the table. He's talking about being accountable for what you had a choice in. That's what I'm hearing.
Right. Yes. And again, even beyond that, when there are those things that are out of your control, how you heal is 100%, regardless of the situation, your responsibility. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of us fail. We get stuck in that rut where we don't see our own power. And so let's go back to your original question, accountability.
Yes.
And as a man, we get beat down a lot. We get beat down, and we get blamed, and we get a lot of bad press. But I think that some of it's deserved, but I think that number one, more conversations need to be had between men and women.
Yes.
Okay. More men need to say things like, I don't like this. This is not comfortable. This hurts my feelings. A man is allowed to say this hurts my feelings, and you're still a man. Feelings are not gender specific. Emotions aren't gender specific. Okay. Being compassionate, empathetic, and understanding to a man is not gender specific. Men need to be understanding, empathetic, and compassionate to other men. That is not gender specific. Because you're compassionate and understanding and empathetic to another man does not mean you are gay, especially in the Black community.
Please say that again.
Being understanding, empathetic, and compassionate toward another Black man as a Black male does not make you gay. That makes you human. Sexuality and emotions are not the same thing. Okay, so let's get back to empathy, or let's get back to accountability.
Yes.
Is that me or is that you? You hear that?
No. I don't.
Okay, that must be on man. So as most people, let's go this way. I was relationship challenged. Okay. That's putting it mildly. To put it bluntly, I was divorced 3 times.
Wow.
And at the end of the third divorce, I really had to take stock in myself. You know, what am I doing, or what actions do I have, or am I presenting, or what's going on?
Right.
So what I did was I took all the things that my last ex-wife said were my issues with the relationship. And I went to my other two ex-wives and I asked them the same questions. And they agreed that these were issues. And then they added some things that were issues in our relationship. And that's where I really started to look at myself in the mirror, address those things. And that's where the whole progression started. Owning up that, yes, I had these problems, and not doing it for any other reason but to better myself, not to be in a relationship, not to do this, not to do that, not for anybody, but to better myself. And once I started doing that, which requires sitting down, meditating, and thinking about it, and learning about yourself. Why did I do this? Why do I act this way? What am I, and then that just opens up so many other things that you can delve into and look into and discover and feel and all of that.
Was that the scary space for you?
It was very scary.
Some people are scared to see themselves for who they really are. Being sober is for people like us who have been drinking since we were 15 years old. Being sober is being aware of myself, to be able to walk into a room without a drink in my hand was hard for me. You know what I'm saying? To go into a room and just be me and not be drunk or medicated in some type of way was hard for me. I'm good with it now, but was that scary for you to sit with yourself?
I had to, I've been learning myself for the last 15 years. The first 4 or 5 years, I would say maybe even no. So I got sober, got divorced. I'm going to be honest, man. It was maybe the last 5 years, 6 years, maybe 5 years that I actually caught up to where I should be.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Mentally.
Right.
But yeah, I had to relearn myself. Even the little things you don't think about, because I've always done that drunk or I'm always high, you know what I mean? So you have to relearn yourself. But I being vulnerable and accountable, especially being vulnerable, it's scary, but it's powerful in the same way. Because once you're 100% vulnerable and all your stuff is out, people don't have power over you anymore. It's like that last scene from 8 Mile, right, when he was when he told on himself, he laid it all out, and he goes, "Now what do you got?" And they just took the wind out of your sails. You know what I mean? That's you. I'm gonna tell you all my shit. There it is.
Yes.
Okay. Now what?
And that's the one thing I loved about Wendy Williams' book. Wendy just shut everybody down. Because, people were all over. She was a drug addict and she was doing this. She just wrote the book and said, listen, like you just said, yeah, I did all of that. And she just skyrocketed after she stopped hiding from herself. Right.
And that's the thing. You can't, and especially as Black men, we have this societally imposed machismo that really limits our possibilities, because we feel that we have to function within this paradigm of what it is to be a Black man. You know what I mean? And the brainwashing has been so well done.
Yes.
That we do it to ourselves.
Oh. Jason.
You know what I mean? And and when you step out of that box, people look at you like, wait a minute, put your shackles back on. What are you doing out of your shackles? But the whole time we had the key. We've always had the key. And not to be speaking disparagingly about anyone, any race, any creed, because we're all beautiful creations. We all have our wonderful traits. We all have our gifts and our skills. You know, I think that the universe has put a gift and a talent in everyone.
Yes.
But as a Black man, we have a power that is universal.
Yes.
And it is often overlooked and downplayed. But more than that, and we're especially seeing it right now, it's feared.
Right.
And we don't, as Black men, we don't we have been so ingrained not to see it that we let it get covered up with other things.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's fear.
Right. Talk about fear. Just
which is if you think about it, I'm gonna get on my racism soapbox for 2 seconds. I'm gonna get off.
Please do.
It's an empowering thing if you think about it, because that's fear. Why are you fearing me? Why are you fear of me?
Right.
My presence, walking into a room, just my presence. I don't open my mouth. I don't say word one. Just me walking into the room instills fear in me. Why is that?
Ooh. That's powerful.
I embrace that.
Yes. That's powerful. I love your openness, and I'm gonna talk about your book in a minute, but I still have I have a lot of questions. I know we ain't gonna get to it, but I love that in your book you apologize, right? So I'm gonna read this because I thought this was just so powerful as a father and as a Black man to free some people that you hurt. You said this is the apology to Julie, Lori, Mel, Heather, and my kids. I'm truly sorry for the times I was less of a man and a father than you deserve. How important was that apology, and did you or do you forgive yourself for those things during that time frame?
The apology was very important. I have apologized to, you know, each of them separately. And I know words don't change things, but I think at the very least we need to acknowledge the fact that we messed up.
Right.
You know what I mean? That you need to verbalize that.
Right. Was it how did you forgive yourself, and what was that process like of having so many years of dysfunction and hurting people who were trying to help you, hurting people who were trying to just love you unconditionally? How tough was it for you to forgive yourself, and what was that process like?
So, I mean, first of all, it's a definite ego gut punch. You know what I mean? And as someone who is learning to keep my ego in proper perspective, you know, that was a challenge. Did I forgive myself? Yes. I mean, you have to forgive yourself. I don't. That doesn't mean I let myself off the hook. It means that, you know, these are actions that I have done. I've acknowledged these actions, and you know, I move forward and make a conscious effort not to repeat those actions. But by no means have I let myself off the hook for it. But I don't punish keep berating myself and punishing for it. It's an acknowledgement of something that's happened, and you move forward.
Self-awareness. That's a word. I just hear that right now in my head, listening to you. Self-awareness. What does that look like for you? Who are you, and what's important to you as a Black man?
Who am I? You know, I guess the best way to describe it is that I am a being in this universe who's trying to express love, compassion, and empathy as fully as I can on a daily basis.
Right.
and to be grateful for pretty much everything in my life all the time.
And for women listening, and I'm not talking about women that are in intimate relationship. I'm talking about women, mothers, sisters, aunties, wife, girlfriend. For women listening, I know for us as women, what's important to us is stability, consistency, feeling safe. What's important to a Black man for women listening? Because we have, I feel, this is just my opinion, and not all Black women, but I feel like we have lost some sense of direction when it comes to Black men. Even with my sons, I like to ask these questions. What's important to my sons as a Black man? I need security from a man or from the men in my life, from the
So and you know, we've talked about this before. I have somewhat of a unique view, what I think is a unique view, or different, not saying unique, but a little bit of different view on that. Although, you know, men and women do have their differences, but I really think that we gender specific things too much. We are people.
Get me, tell
you know
me.
what I mean? So what you want as a person, we want too.
I'm leaving.
That's what we want. You know, and I think that we make this gender specific, and you know, well, just because you have this genitalia, you need to be treated this way, and just because you have this genitalia, this isn't important to you. No, it's not. That's bullshit. Men are people. Women are people. If you like it, we like it.
Oh.
End of story.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, you're tuned into Men Hurt Too, brought to you by #Coffee with T, and I'm T, and I'm here today with my guest, Jason Moss, who is a excellent chef. He has a book called That Damn Cookbook, and he has a brand called That Damn Brand. We are talking about rebounding and recovering from the demons in your life, from addictions and things of that nature. So you talked about your 3 marriages, and you said your last wedding you needed a death waiver to attend.
Yeah, well, we were both competitive athletes at the time, and our wedding was actually a corporate sponsored race.
Right. So that's already, like, mentally for me, like, what would make you, is that sort of like, because I'm thinking of addiction and habits, and was everybody needed to be a part of that. Like, what did that look like?
So here's the thing. And this, I learned a lot of valuable lessons from that marriage, from that relationship in general. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest things I learned was you need to leave the party when it's time.
Ooh.
You know, in society, we're like, oh, you're married, you stay together, loyal. That's bullshit. I've always prided myself in remaining friends with my exes.
Right.
For instance, my second ex-wife, we're very close. We speak on, of course, we have 2 young boys, but we speak on a daily basis. Like she's one of the few people I trust in my life. Like, she's my emergency contact, blah, blah, blah. And we have not been like, you know, she has a boyfriend, you know, we're just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't believe that at one time you said you loved that person. That shouldn't change. You know what I mean? Their role in your life might change, but you still said you love that person. You know what I mean? I don't understand this, oh, you break up and you hate, or my ex. No, you stayed at the party too long.
Ooh, you stayed at the party. Somebody better take it.
And that's what I learned from my last wedding, or my last marriage. You know, we had so many compatible attributes. You know, on paper, we were like that perfect couple, but we also had, you know, some negative attributes as well. And I think that we both stayed at the party way too long. If we would have left when it was time, when we both knew we should have left, we probably still could have been friends on some level today.
Right.
But what I was going to say, that was one thing I learned. The other thing I learned was to keep your business off of social media. Our life turned into a reality show on social media.
Right.
Our wedding was a business as well. because we were both athletes and we both, we were both sponsored athletes. So that was we crossed that line too much.
Oh.
You know what I mean? We had no delineation between personal life and business. And the wedding was just that. It was, I mean, it was business. You know what I mean? The actual wedding itself, so I learned a lot from that marriage.
I'm just impressed, like, because I have a very healthy relationship with my two oldest boys, their father. We're really good friends. There's nothing intimate or anything, but we are really good friends. Like,
yeah.
Like in my mind, when something goes wrong, he'll pop in because I know that he's a responsible one and that he really cares about my well-being. So I totally get that. I love that. I'm telling you, you are like the mirror image of me. Like I'm the female version of you. You just don't notice. Because I was reading your book, I was like, that's me. So in your book, you have a section that says, "Take your own advice, asshole." It's really hard because I'm a relationship coach. I'm a life coach and a relationship coach. So when you're going through what you're teaching, it's really hard sometimes to take your own advice. So you talked about that. Do you now take your own advice?
So, yes. And one of the main reasons is I believe in practicing what you preach, and what I do professionally is based upon, so as an artist, right? As a chef, as an artist, I'm an artist. As an artist, we rely on people's opinion and feedback of our art. That's how we, whatever. So, I put a lot of what I do in the forefront. It's social media and this and that. And who I am and my philosophy plays into a lot of what I do. And I'm very open about my philosophy and my viewpoint. I'll be damned if you meet me in person and turn around and say, that dude was full of shit. He wasn't what he said he was. Right. You know what I mean?
And I met you in person and you really are. Jason.
So if you catch me on whatever, I'm going to be about that shit I was talking about.
Right.
And so, yes, I do take my own advice for that very reason, because, I can't be, on social media talking about love, compassion, empathy, and understanding. And I'm over here, treating other people some kind of way.
Right.
Or, I can't talk about, we're all people, we're all adults, and we all want to be treated the same way. And I'm over here treating women some kind of way. You know what I mean? Like,
I love that. And in your book, you talk about one of the keys to eating well is preparation. Is that also the key to a successful life?
And again, I have a very different view of a lot of things and a lot of people. To me, success. It was funny. I was talking to a client about this today, and the client said, "How was your weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, it was another day." They're like, "What do you mean it's another day?" They're like, "You don't look forward to the weekend?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "What do you look forward to?" I look forward to waking up. Like every day, like I go to bed I have a nightly routine. I don't do it every night, but most nights of the week I do it. And what I do is I set my intention for the next day. And my intention for the day is I say that tomorrow is a new day. I don't take today into tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? Today, what happened today is done. Tomorrow's a new day. And I look forward to every day. So to me, success is making a life that you don't need a vacation from.
I'm stealing that. Can I steal that?
That's my idea of success. It's not about money, because money is fictitious.
Right.
There's two rules about money I found. There's always more and there's never enough.
Oh.
You know what I mean? You can always make more money, and I don't care how much money you make, there's never enough. Because even the richest man in the world, there's something he can't buy.
Whoa. Right.
So although money is necessary, you got to pay bills and rent and mortgages, and you need money. I'm not saying that.
Yes.
But I don't quantify my success on that.
Right. So in your book, because I just want people to understand, Jason is in his book, once we talk about his book is brilliant. I'm going to say that for me, it's brilliant the way it's written, because it's a healthy way from your body, what you're putting in your body, and it's healthy of what you're putting in your mind. To be honest and open and transparent was refreshing for me to read the book and look at the recipes, but also understand who you are as a person, because I'm connected to you because I feel like you're healthy from the inside out, and not only for food, but mind and spirit and body and soul. And that's why I love the book. So in your book, you said addiction gives zero fucks about logic. So addiction doesn't care about logic, because I want people to understand that addiction is real. So many people are mad at their addicted sister or their mother. Addiction is a real disease. So how did you go from the path of physical destruction to where you are now?
My mother, after my last DUI, told me that if I didn't get help, I was either going to be dead or in jail. And that's always that has resonated with me ever since she said those words. And the next day I checked myself in the rehab. And, you know, so I wrote this book the way I did for several reasons. One of the main reasons was, and you'll see at the end of the book, I don't know if you saw that I actually give my email address.
Yes.
You know, because I'm very serious about helping people in recovery and helping people who want to recover. So, you know, jasonmosspersonalchef@gmail.com. If you need help, reach out to me. You know what I mean? I'm sobriety is the best gift I ever gave myself. And I tell people all the time that sobriety comes before everything in my life, my kids, any relationship, because if I'm not sober, I'm not shit. And everything I've worked for all these years goes away if I'm not sober. But having said that, you know, there's such a stigma in this country about addiction.
Right.
People think, oh, you're a loser, you're this, you're that, you're that. What you're seeing is the aftermath of addiction. What you're seeing is the collateral damage of addiction. You know what I mean? What you're not seeing, like, I hate that thing, oh, well, addicts get Narcan for free, but I got to pay for my insulin. No, the thing should be, I have to pay for my insulin. Don't worry about what the addicts, they shouldn't be banging you over the head for insulin. That's the problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? What you're seeing is the aftermath of addiction. You're not seeing that person. Because as addicts, we hate ourselves. We hate what we're doing. We hate how we feel, and we hate how we feel powerless. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's not until we realize that we have that power do we start feeling better. But though, you know, we get so used to, as addicts, we get so used to not having, because we lose everything. We lose relationships, we lose money, we lose possessions, we just lose. And it's our fault. I'm not blaming society. I'm saying it's our fault. We do it to ourselves, but we get so used to losing. We get so used to seeing the disappointment in family members' faces. We get so used to the lies and the stories we have to tell to people to cover our bullshit. We get so used to that. That's the part you don't see in addiction.
Wow.
The pain and the turmoil.
Yes.
So I wrote this book to be open about addiction.
Yes.
It's not, it is a situation. It is a disease. You know what I mean? Oh, it's not a disease, it's a choice. Yes, it's a choice, but it's also a disease. Just like diabetes is a disease and is a choice, addiction is a disease and a choice. You can be a diabetic and lose your leg because you chose not to eat right.
Right.
You can have high blood pressure and get a stroke because you chose not to take your medicine and eat right.
Right.
So it's a disease and a choice.
So let me
yes, I have a disease, but I'm choosing to deal with it.
Right. Yes.
So,
I did a fast, Jason, about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and my coach sent it to me, and I can't fast off of food because I already don't eat. That's not a sacrifice for me. So I love coffee, right? So I did this fast. And for 3 days, I went through withdrawal. Like, my head was, I sat here like this, like a real addict. And
I know.
And I said to God, I said, thank you, because I will never ever judge a person who has an addiction to anything.
No.
I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Yeah, I'm telling you. People, like I said, you can get addicted to walking down the left side of the street if you want to. Addiction doesn't matter. Like I said, there is no logic to addiction and what you get addicted to, and you know what I mean. Like, and there's no logic to that. But it needs to come out of the shadows. It needs to get this whole stigma behind it. You know what I mean? Acknowledge the fact that there's an issue, and let's move forward and stop making these people feel that they need to be in a shade and somewhere hiding on Skid Row somewhere because you have an addiction.
Right. And do you think that the stigma is even worse for Black men?
Of course it is. Listen, in the 80s and 90s, crack wasn't a problem until it went across the street.
Right.
Opiates weren't a problem. Well, opiates were a problem originally because that wasn't us. We didn't have the opiates for the most part. Right. That's why it's such a problem. And I'm not trying to be callous toward, I'm just speaking factually.
Yes. So how do we as a society help Black men? Because I'm here on this platform because I know that Black men need healing, and I work with women too. I have 2 books. It's Healing Time, Restoring Hope in Women After Infidelity. And then I have my book is Healing Time, Men Hurt Too, because I feel as though we need to simultaneously heal as men and women. So when we come together, we can have healthy relationships. And there's so many platforms for women, seminars and retreats. How can we help the Black man?
The Black man has to help himself.
Ooh.
That's the bottom line. You know, we need to realize
don't be vulnerable. Even with me and my sons, until I got my life together, you're a boy, don't cry. You're a boy, you're a man. You're this, you're that. I didn't really connect with them as human beings until my son was a little older, and I started to see that he had feelings. But when I really connected, when he had his first breakup with a girl, and my son was in the house crying, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, wow, like he's really hurting. So if you've been told for so long, don't be vulnerable. Don't tell anybody you need help. Don't you dare tell anybody you're hurting. Don't you dare go hug another Black man. How does the Black man help himself?
First of all, I call that the toxic waterfall, because you know the Black men in your life before had this toxic water poured on them, and now they're pouring this toxic water on you because, oh, this is what you need to do to be a man. This is what I went through. That's bullshit. Right. Think about how you felt when you were a kid and you were being told not to have those feelings.
Right.
Think about how you felt.
Horrible.
Because innately, we weren't born that way. Innately, you look at a child, any race, color, creed, sex, whatever, they laugh and they cry. That's the only 2 things they do. They want to play and they want to express when they don't feel good.
Right.
Right? That is how we were designed. We were designed to express joy and sorrow.
Right.
Why are you changing that? Express your joy. Express your sorrow. And if anybody tells you not to, you don't need them in your life.
I hope Black men, I hope that you are listening to this, that you get to express joy and you get to express sorrow. Because and I say this in my book, from the moment the doctor pulled my sons out and said, it's a boy, they were no longer considered human beings, and the expectations put on them were not for a human being, but for a male. And I had to learn from my sons and the pain that they went through. From me, I committed adultery and I took my boys out of the house, and there was a lot of pain and a lot of trauma they went through. And I had to look at myself to say, your kids, your sons are hurting based on trauma that they went through. They're human beings, Trey. And my oldest son, he had very candid conversations with me, like, you hurt my feelings. And I'm like, hurt your feelings? Get out of here. But as I got older, I realized. So for the men who are listening, I just want you to say something to them as far as healing is concerned, as far as wholeness is concerned, the possibility of it.
So, I mean, as far as healing goes, and again, I keep saying this, it's that's the one thing I learned in my relationships. I was giving my power away because I didn't realize my power. Do not give your power away. And this is not some machismo thing and putting up emotional walls and being emotionally unavailable. I'm not saying any of that. When I'm saying don't give your power away, do not allow someone to tell you you cannot feel. Do not allow someone to tell you you cannot be expressive. Do not allow someone to tell you that you shouldn't feel this way or you should feel this way. Feel the way you think you should feel. You know what I mean? But I would say this. Take the time to do the work, to be reflective, to find out who you are. You know, look at the things, and we all know what these things are. You know, I forget where I read it at, but you know, we are born with the answer to every question we'll ever have. Because where do you think these answers come from? No, we already know the knowledge. We're born with it. We just don't know the questions.
Right.
We already have the answers. We just got to find the questions, and that's what we need to do. We need to sit and we need to meditate and we need to really reflect on ourselves. You know what I mean? If you're having relationship problems, why are you having relationship problems? You know what I mean? I'm sure that's not the first time you heard that X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Because that wasn't the first person you dealt with.
Right.
So what is causing that to happen?
I love this.
What's the root of that? You know what I mean? And I'm blaming people. Oh, well, my mom this and my mom. That's not your mom.
Right.
It's you. Figure out what you need to do to fix that. Figure out who you need to forgive. Figure out what you need to get over. Figure out what you need to put to bed. Figure out who you need to talk to, who you need to apologize to. Start in the mirror, look in the mirror and say you're sorry to yourself, and then go from there. Get rid of all that baggage. Just get rid of it. And engineer your life in a way that, you know, because a lot of times men, we behave the way we do because we're not happy. We're in jobs we don't want to be in. We're in relationships we don't want to be in. We're living in situations we don't want to be in. You know what I mean? We're not in control of our life. Mm-hmm. Because we're too afraid to be uncomfortable for a little bit of time to get where we want to go. Mm. So get used to being uncomfortable for a little bit of time. Get your own thing. Get in control of your own life. And then you're going to be happy. Well, you'll be happier.
Right. I love that. Listen, so we got to talk a little bit about the cookbook because our time is almost up, and I want to be mindful of your time. But if you just tuned in, you're tuned into Men Hurt Too, the series, and I'm here with Jason Moss, who is an amazing chef, and I can say that because I had his food, and I have not stopped thinking about that food.
Well, thank you.
I'm still thinking about the food. I'm like, Jason, I need Jason to come to my house. So we're going to talk about that too, because I got a few people who asked about that. But Jason's book is That Damn Cookbook, and he also created the brand, That Damn Brand. And this is more than a cookbook. This is a healing agent. This is balm to your scar, to your wound. If you read this book, it will begin a healing process for you through his transparency. And I always say this, truth plus transparency equals healing. So tell me, Jason, what was the inspiration behind this book? And then tell me and the people listening where they can find it.
All right. So before, in pre-COVID times, my main business was a personal chef. I did a lot of meal preparation for people. I would go in their homes. I would cook their meals for the week, package and put in the refrigerator. So the book started off was I was going to show people how I do it. How I take a recipe and break it down to a shopping list, how to go through the store, what to look for, the pitfalls of shopping, how to arrange your kitchen, the equipment you need, the spices you need. It was going to be a how to prep food, meal prep. Now, as I was writing it, there was parts of my story that I needed to tell because, as you're saying, transparency equals truth. And I'm a firm believer that if people see that you're relatable and your story is something that they can relate to, everyday story. For instance, 2009, I was 290 pounds. So I'm not coming from a place that I was always fit and in shape. I'm coming from a place that, yes, I know your struggle too. You know what I mean? I know what you're going through. So as I was starting to tell little bits and pieces of the story, little bits and pieces got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll never forget. So I was still working full time when I started this book. So I would get done in the restaurant at like 10, 11 o'clock, go home, shower, and there was a 24-hour diner where I lived. So I would go and I would make myself right for 2 hours every night. And I have a close friend. She's a third shift nurse. And, you know, I would always throw stuff by her like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And so I had 2 pages of this really deep stuff. And I sent it to her. I said, hey, I'm thinking about putting this in my book. And she's like, are you sure? And it was actually the part about my arrest and all that stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I think I need to put that in. And she's like, I think you should. It's good stuff. And then from there, it just turned into, it just morphed into a whole other, you know, it just, I'm like, you know what? And real quick, I did it for a couple reasons. One, like I said, because I wanted to help somebody. If this book helps one person getting to recovery, it's been a success.
Yes.
I did it for another reason, vulnerability. You know, like I said, once you're vulnerable, there's nothing that there's nothing they can do to you because all your stuff's out. You got nothing on me now. Number 2. Number 3, and anybody reads the book and people who know my life, I ran foul of the law when I was in my 20s, and you know, I have several felonies, 3 felonies on my record for that. I have lost jobs, apartments, 2 different TV shows, and other opportunities because of a record I had 22 years ago. This book was a big middle finger to everybody who used my past against me.
Woo!
Now my past is on the table. You know what I did. I told you what I did. Let's do business.
Wow.
I say that your past is your permission slip for the future. So every black man out there with felonies on their record who thinks that they can't do anything else because they got felonies, this is a big middle finger and let you know that you can do whatever the hell you want to do. You make your own way.
Yes.
Like you don't want to hire me? Fine, I'll start my own business. You don't want to give me a TV show? Guess what? I got one now. And I got other things in the works. You don't want to give me an opportunity? I'm going to write a screenplay about it and make a movie, which is in the works as well. So, you know what I mean? Don't tell me no because of what I did when I was in my past. I did my thing. I admitted I was wrong. I did my time, blah, blah, blah. Let's move on. I always say that in this country, anytime you're given a felony charge, whatever it is, you're given a life sentence.
Wow. Wow. I love how you flipped your life around. I just want to say that to you. Like, my shirt says Black men are dope because I really believe that. And I believe that we have put all Black men in a box. And I can't do that. Like, I've been hurt in relationships. But that was by those 2 guys.
We all have.
Or those 2 guys. That's not every person that I ever.
We all have, and people do that. All men are trash, or all women are this.
Right.
No, if you keep running across niggas who ain't shit, you ain't. That's your problem. And you need to change yourself and raise your elevation and raise your vibration and raise your energy. Because you know what? The more I have done that, those people are filtered out of my life.
And going into that question, I wasn't even going to ask. It's going to be my last question. But since we got there, because it went right to the last question that I wasn't going to ask because our time was up. But when do you believe a man is operating at his highest frequency?
You can tell that by the people that are surrounding him, or that are, you know what I mean? And the more I delve into myself, the smaller my crowd gets. And because, and it's funny because, you know, when I first started my journey, in the back of my head, it was because, you know, I want to get better so I can get into a relationship. The more and more I went down that journey, the less and less I have desire to be in a relationship. Because the more you're happy with yourself, the less you're looking for external happiness. Yes, you know, a relationship is good, whatever, but it has to be just the right situation. I always say this, first of all, don't ever ask me what I'm bringing to the table, because I'm bringing the table, and you're supposed to bring a table, and together we have a big table. Okay, so don't ask me what I'm bringing to the table. If you ask me that question, I know you're the wrong person. Number one. Number two, I'm looking for a person. So I'm 100% happy with my life.
Right.
I'm looking for a person who's 100% happy with their life.
Yes.
And together we can enjoy each other's happiness of each other's happiness.
I love it.
So when you can tell who is surrounding that man? What is that man surrounded by? What does his circle look like? How big is his circle?
Right.
What's his circle doing?
Right.
That tells about the man.
I love that. So tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your cookbook and your services.
My cookbook is on Amazon.com right now, and social media. Jason Moss Personal Chef at Facebook, and Instagram is Jason Moss Recipes. And coming soon will be thatdamnbrand.com. Got spices rolling out, apparel. If you see the shirt that I'm wearing, it's one of our shirts that we're going to be coming out with. So yeah.
Can I get some of them spices?
I didn't hook you. Yeah, I got you.
We're gonna talk on the back end because I need the spices. That food. Listen, you're ready. I'm just saying. I've been dreaming about that food ever since. So thank you everybody for tuning in to Men Hurt Too. We will see you next week. Thank you, Jason Moss. You have been a light in my life, and I hope that one person got what it is that they needed from engaging with us today. So thank you. Remember what I tell you at the end of all my broadcasts. You deserve the best. Yes, I'm talking to you. You deserve the best. Now go get it. And remember Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. So I love you guys. God bless. And I'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.